Inauguration is now just hours away, and President-elect Donald Trump has vowed to hit the ground running. His day one agenda is nothing short of a political earthquake, and his cabinet picks are enough to show what's about to come. From mass deportations of illegal immigrants to slapping 100% tariffs on countries like China, Canada, and Mexico.
If China or any other country is charging us 100 or 200% tariff or tax, then we will charge them 100 or 200%.
Trump's plans signal seismic shifts in America's economic and political landscape. But is this bold vision a step toward prosperity or a gamble with global consequences? Let's understand Trump's proposed policies, focusing on the economic impact. Buckle up. This is going to be a wild ride. Donald Trump announced what he's calling the largest deportation effort in American history. He promised to launch this initiative on day one. While this bold move raises questions about national security and diplomatic relations, we only focus on the economic impact. As of mid-2023, the Center for Migration Studies estimated there were nearly 12 million undocumented immigrants in the United States. However, many experts argue that the actual number could be much higher. And here comes the kicker. Immigrants are a significant part of the U.S. economy, concentrated in key industries like retail, hospitality, and construction, sectors that collectively employ millions of workers and form the backbone of the nation's economic output. Much of the progress in the Biden era is due to the role of immigrants. If a large-scale deportation effort begins, these industries will face massive disruptions. For example, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, nearly 30% of workers in construction are foreign-born. Many of them are undocumented, and some have received court orders to leave the U.S. Imagine the ripple effects if a substantial percentage of that workforce were suddenly removed. Projects would slow down, costs would soar, and labor shortages could lead to delayed developments, further inflating housing prices that are already a major pain point for Americans. In the hospitality industry, which includes restaurants and hotels, more than 22% of workers are immigrants, a significant portion of whom are undocumented. This sector, which is still recovering from the pandemic, could face a labor crisis, leading to reduced services, higher consumer costs, and potential closures of smaller businesses. The financial implications don't end there. Large-scale deportation efforts aren't cheap either. Studies from the Department of Homeland Security estimate that deporting a single individual costs taxpayers around $10,000. Multiply that by the millions Trump plans to deport, and you're looking at a price tag in the range of $100 billion or more. However, Trump has stated that it's not a question of a price tag. That cost is secondary to enforcing the law. However, this effort would undeniably redirect taxpayer dollars that could otherwise be used for infrastructure, education, or healthcare. To put it into perspective, $100 billion is roughly the entire budget of the Department of Education for 1 year. Meanwhile, immigration policies under the Biden administration have faced scrutiny for contributing to the increase in undocumented immigrants. In 2022 alone, the number of illegal crossings at the southern border reached record highs, driven by a mix of economic and political factors. This sharp rise has intensified debates over how to address the issue, with Trump's proposed deportation effort emerging as one of the most extreme solutions. But here's the big question. Is America ready to bear the economic burden of this historic effort? Only time will tell.
We will end all taxes on overtime. So no tax on Social Securities for our great seniors.
Moving to the tax code now, another day one agenda for Trump. The president-elect has floated several tax policy changes, some of which could reshape the financial landscape for individuals and companies. First, Trump wants to extend the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. The act is set to expire in a few days, but as Trump has his way back, the lower personal income tax rates could become permanent. That means more take-home pay for millions of Americans. Next are the state and local tax or SALT deductions. If you live in a high-tax state, you know the frustration of the SALT deduction cap. Trump has floated the idea of lifting this cap, potentially providing significant relief to taxpayers in states like California, New York, and New Jersey. For businesses, there's a big proposal on the table: corporate tax cuts targeted specifically at domestic manufacturing. Trump wants to lower the corporate tax rate to encourage U.S.-based production, aiming to create jobs and stimulate economic growth. In a move that could transform the service industry, Trump has proposed eliminating taxes on tips and overtime. This plan could leave more money in the pockets of millions of hardworking Americans, from waitstaff to hourly employees putting in extra hours. Finally, for retirees, Trump has suggested scrapping taxes on Social Security income. This would be a massive win for older Americans, giving them more financial freedom in their golden years. But there's a catch. America's national debt just surpassed $35 trillion, and annual deficits are climbing. Lower taxes mean lower federal revenue, and without spending cuts, this could exacerbate the debt crisis. Will Congress go along with these sweeping reductions? Only time will tell. The Federal Reserve could find itself in the crosshairs. Trump has never hidden his disdain for Fed Chair Jerome Powell, even hinting at removing him during his first term. While Powell has stood firm, refusing to step down, the big question remains: can these two power players find common ground on monetary policy? High interest rates have been Trump's pet peeve, and you can bet he will push for a looser monetary policy. But will the Fed budge? History tells us Powell won't be easily swayed, setting up a potential clash. Another cornerstone of Trump's economic agenda is protectionism. Trump has repeatedly signaled plans to increase tariffs, particularly on imports from China. He wants to impose steep new tariffs on foreign goods, arguing it will protect American jobs and industries. Higher tariffs are also a way to offset revenue lost from tax cuts. But here's the kicker: consumers pay the price. And don't forget, Trump will need congressional approval for his tax policies. Opposition is almost guaranteed, especially as debates heat up over corporate tax loopholes and exemptions. Tariffs are one of Trump's boldest economic strategies. Reports suggest Trump is considering a 20% duty on all foreign goods imported into the U.S. and a staggering 60% or higher tariff on products from China. These numbers are massive and could disrupt global trade as we know it. To put this into perspective, if these tariffs were implemented, imported goods like electronics, furniture, and clothing could see a steep price hike. Imagine paying 20% more for your next smartphone or car. Now here's the big question: would Americans accept such a policy? According to a 2023 Pew Research survey, 62% of Americans expressed concern over rising costs from tariffs during the last trade disputes with China. So, the backlash could be significant. But what's the strategy here? Analysts believe these tariffs could serve as a negotiating tool, much like Trump's Greenland maneuver, where his public comments on purchasing the territory were less about action and more about leverage. Instead of applying tariffs across the board, it's likely his team would target specific sectors strategically, focusing on industries where the U.S. has a competitive edge, like aerospace or agriculture. The big question is, how would this impact the average American? Well, increased tariffs typically result in higher prices for imported goods, which hit consumers directly. During the 2018 trade war, for example, a study by the Federal Reserve estimated that tariffs cost U.S. households an extra $1,277 per year on average. If these new tariffs go through, the economic strain could be even more significant. Trump's economic advisors are likely weighing these consequences carefully. While such high tariffs may appeal to certain voter bases, they could also alienate businesses and consumers who rely on affordable imports. Whether this plan materializes or remains a negotiating tactic, it's clear that tariffs will continue to be a hot topic in global trade policy. What do you think? Would you pay more for imported goods if it meant supporting U.S. industries? And what American-made products fit your budget today?